All right, all right. So here we go with a little review of SOHCAHTOA. We spent a bunch of time on this. We have a right triangle. Turns out this is a 3, 4, 5 right triangle. And just as an aside, these Pythagorean triplets. So the 3, 4, 5, and we also have the 5, 12, 13. So these are the two that you definitely should just kind of know off the top of your head. Good SAT prep or whatever. But what we could say is that, so we could say the sine of x is something. I'm just going to sort of come up with a couple examples here. Secant of y equals, and then we'll go tangent of x. Okay, so the sine of x, we know sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So when we're talking about the angle x, this is the opposite, this is the hypotenuse. So we could just say that that is 3 over 5. This is expressing it as a ratio. If the question asked us for the secant of y, so here's angle y, this would be the adjacent and opposite and hypotenuse. Secant we know is 1 over the cosine. So 1 over cosine, and cosine of y would be adjacent over hypotenuse. So 1 over 3/5. We know dividing by a fraction is the same as multiplying by the reciprocal, and it would yield 5/3, like that. Okay, and then lastly, just as more review, tangent of x. So here's angle x, and tangent is the opposite over the adjacent. So it would be 3/4. Okay, that said, we've got 4 examples, so you solve them out here, and I'm going to move on to the next page for example number 1. Aha! So I'm assuming that the question asks us to solve for x, and we have a right triangle, 30 degrees, so it looks like this is the adjacent and this is the opposite side. So the trig ratio that involves opposite and adjacent is tangent, and we could say tangent of 30 degrees equals the opposite, equals the opposite over the adjacent side. And here, when we have that variable in the denominator, common mistake. Common mistake right here, divide both sides by 4 and call it good? No way. Excuse me. So we think about this as over 1, cross multiply. So x times tangent of 30 degrees is 1 times 4. Therefore, x will equal 4 divided by tangent of 30. Alright, so again, common mistake. Watch out when you have the variable in the denominator. Alright, tangent divided by 4 would be wrong. It's actually 4 divided by the tangent of the 30 degrees. So make sure you're in degree mode if you're finding degrees, and it looks like 6.9 for x. We get an answer. We can kind of look at it. Hey, does that make sense? Based on the fact that this is 4, could that be 6.9? Sure. Alright, second example. So sketch a triangle that has an acute angle. So acute, that is an angle that is less than 90 degrees. Like, oh, it's so cute, meaning it's small, less than 90 degrees. Find the other 5 trigonometric ratios of theta. So we're going to work with this one. Sketching a triangle, sine of the angle is 3/5. So we have opposite, hypotenuse, and let's see, opposite, hypotenuse. This is looking suspiciously like that one we just had, 3, 4, 5, which is common. It'll show up a lot. So here's our angle theta. Okay. And I knew to do that because this is the opposite, this is the hypotenuse, and we could use our Pythagorean theorem skills to find this, and we would determine that it is equal to 4. So when it says the other 5, would they give us 1? They tell us that sine of the angle. We're not trying to find the angle. We're trying to find the other 5 trig ratios. So sine is 3 over 5, opposite over hypotenuse. We know that cosine of the angle would be the adjacent over the hypotenuse. Tangent of the angle is opposite over the adjacent. And then we have cosecant. So cosecant is 1 over the sine. Remember, the c's and s's are reversed. That's how I remember. Cosecant is 1 over sine, and secant is 1 over cosine. So cosecant of theta is 1 over 3/5. I'll write this out. 1 over 3/5 is the same as, that's right, 5/3. Dividing by fraction, same as multiplying by the reciprocal. Secant of theta is 1 over the cosine, so we got 1 over 4/5, which gives us 5/4. And cotangent is 1 over the tangent, so 1 over this guy, and I'm just going to skip that step and say we know, we would flip it, and it would be 4/3. So this is what the question is referring to by the other 5 trig ratios. We have a total of 6. Alright, example 3. So for example 3, you get to do this one for homework. Example 3, we'll do this. Let's see. Evaluate the expression without using a calculator. No problem. We are masters of the unit circle, and so we know we got sine of 30 times cosecant of 30. Sine 30, excuse me, short side, we know that's 1/2. So we have 1/2. And then cosecant, remember cosecant is 1 over the sine. So cosecant of 30 is 1 over the sine of 30 degrees. This is the same as 1/2 times 2 over 1 equals 1. Boom. And last thing, oh, thank goodness. So, word problem. We got a diagram, height of a water tower. Let's see. A water tower is located, zoom in a bit. Water tower is located 325 feet from a building. From a window in the building, an observer notes that the angle of elevation, so by here you are, this is you, observing the water tower. Not drawn to scale. When it talks about angle of elevation, this is horizontal or flat, and so we're talking about how much above that. So angle of elevation of the top of the tower is 39 degrees. Angle of depression, so from horizontal downward, angle of depression at the bottom of the tower is 25 degrees. How tall is the tower? And how tall is the window? How high is the window above the ground? So we are looking for this distance. This is our window height. And this distance, this is our tower height. Question mark. So if we look at our diagram, we definitely have 2 right triangles here. We got this guy. Whoa, that's a straight line, even though it doesn't look like it. And then we know that this is 325. And then we have the triangle down below. So first, let's solve for the opposite side in this right triangle. We know our angle is 39 degrees. Adjacent side is 325. So we could say that the tangent of 39 degrees is x over 325. So let's label this as x right here. Solving, make sure you're in degree mode, and we're going to end up with x is 263.18. So 263.18 as the length of this side. And I'll try a different color here so we can see. In solving for this, So the opposite side of this bottom triangle, call this y, we could say that the tangent of 25 degrees is opposite over adjacent, and we would get that y is 151.55. 151.55. Okay, so to actually answer our question, what is the height of the window? Well, the window is this high off the ground, so that would be 151, and I'm just going to use one decimal place, 0.6 feet for our window. And how tall is the tower? So from here to here, and you will notice that it is the sum of our 263.18 and our 151.55. So in adding those together, we get that the tower is, and we add 151.55 plus 263.18, and I think that gives us something like 414.7 feet. Okay, so don't get freaked out by the word problems. Draw a diagram if there isn't one. Label everything you can and piece it together. You got this.